Many years ago, in the peaceful city of Abuja, there lived a man named Harry. He was not just handsome, he was dangerously attractive. Harry had a smooth deep voice that could silence a noisy room. His abs looked like they were carved out of stone, and his jawline was so sharp it looked like it could cut glass. Whenever he walked into a room, heads turned, men watched with envy, and women stared with desire. But Harry was more than just a pretty face. He was rich, filthy rich. He owned estates across the country and had so many luxury cars that his garage looked like a private auto show. Bentleys, Ferraris, G-Wagons, name it. Henry had it, in every color. It was said that if he decided to sleep in a different room every night for a whole year, he still wouldn't run out of rooms in his mansion. He owned hotels, nightclubs, lounges, and shopping complexes scattered all over the North Central. His wealth was the kind that made politicians jealous. There was even a strange rumor floating around that Henry used clean bundles of money instead of tissue paper. People whispered it, half joking, half believing. Yet, despite his wealth and fame, Henry was different from other rich young men. He didn't party, he didn't show off, he didn't surround himself with fake friends or loud hangers-on. He kept to himself like a shadow. His mansion sat on a hill, surrounded by a massive iron gate and a fence so high it looked like it was built to keep giants out or something else. Nobody was allowed to live in the mansion with him, not even his domestic workers. They came every morning at 8 a.m. sharp, and no matter what, they had to leave by 6 p.m. Once the gates shut, Henry was completely alone. But not really alone. There was something or someone behind one particular door, deep inside the house, a room that was always locked, a room no one was there to ask about. The workers had heard strange sounds from behind it, whispers, footsteps, and sometimes crying. But anytime someone got curious, they were immediately fired the next day. No questions asked. Henry's mystery only made him more desirable. Women from all over Abuja and beyond chased after him. Some came from rich families, some were popular on Instagram, TikTok, and some were just drawn to the darkness of his eyes. They all wanted to be one to break through his cold hearts. They wanted the title of Mrs. Henry. They wanted the mansion, the money, and the man. He dated a few of them, briefly, but none of those relationships lasted more than a few months. And strangely, every single woman he dated disappeared from the public eye. After the breakup, no goodbye post, no explanations, no trace, almost as if they never existed. People talked, but Harry said nothing. And deep inside his mansion, behind that heavy locked door, something waited. Harry was a man of habits. He liked things neat, quiet, and under control. And when it came to women, his pattern never changed. He didn't chase love in Abuja or pick from the rich girls who flooded his DMs and flirted openly. No, he traveled far, deep into forgotten places where desperation lived in silence. His next destination was Kudenda, a small riverside village in Kaduna State, where life was simple and suffering was constant. That was where he found Jessica. Jessica was 19, just out of secondary school with wide, hopeful eyes and rough palms from helping her parents on the farm. She was the eldest of 6, and they all lived in a 2-room old house with no ceiling fan, no generator, just lanterns and prayers. Henry came in his face so spotless that children stopped playing to stare. He didn't wait to be invited. He walked straight into Jessica's home like he owned the earth under their feet. He said little, just enough. He told her parents that he wanted their daughter as his wife. He said she would never suffer again, and then the miracles began. The next day, he bought the land behind their home and built them a 6-bedroom mansion, solar panels, borehole water, new furniture imported from Italy. Then he gave Jessica's father a fish business worth millions and cleared all their debts with a big iPhone 6 Pro Max. The family didn't just accept, they worshipped him. Jessica was handed over with wide smiles and nervous joy. The wedding happened within 2 weeks. No time for too many questions. Harry brought his own planners, photographers, and security. The entire village watched as the poor village girl turned into a queen overnight. But the villagers noticed something strange. Jessica never smiled during the wedding. Not once. She looked beautiful, yes, but her eyes were unsure. And when her veil was pulled over her face, one of the children whispered, "She is the luckiest girl alive." No one paid attention to what was going on. Once the celebration ended, Henry took Jessica and Ray back to his fortress-like mansion on the outskirts of Abuja. There he spoiled her with gifts, designer gowns, gold bangles, soft music, and silent meals, and for a while, she adjusted. When she got pregnant 3 months later, she felt joy again. She danced in her room and recorded voice notes for her unborn child. Henry looked pleased. He brought in a nurse to check on her weekly and even had a nursery built at the far end of the mansion, painted white and grey with no windows. But then, everything changed. One night around her seventh month, Jessica began to hear sounds, a woman's laughter, faint but bitter, echoing through the corridors. She asked Henry about it. He said nothing. Instead, later on, he whispered into her ears, "You are perfect, just the way you are." Jessica went to bed. The next morning, she was found unresponsive, no struggle, no blood, no signs of pain. The nurse said her heart just stopped, no explanation. Henry sent a message to her family. They mourned, they screamed, but they accepted her death as fate. When Henry requested to bury her behind his mansion so she could stay close to him, they agreed. After all, he was her husband. They never saw her body again. The grave was dug, a coffin was lowered, but what was inside, only Henry knew. And at night, when the wind moved fast and the gate slammed hard, the staff whispered again about the room at the end of the hall. No one dared enter, the one with 7 locks. A year after Jessica's mysterious death, Henry's house was once again silent. The garden where she used to sit and read had become overgrown, the nursery untouched. The housekeepers now avoided the west wing entirely, and the guards had stopped asking questions. Whatever happened behind the locked door, they didn't want to know. But Henry, he was ready to marry again. This time, he traveled to a quiet, dusty village in Suleja, a place where dreams floated in the air like dust, but rarely came true. That's where he found Sandra. She was 19, stunning, intelligent, with large curious eyes and a quiet grace that made her stand out. Even while hawking pure water under the harsh sun, Sandra was an orphan. She lived with her uncle, a very greedy man who never smiled unless money was involved. Sandra had big dreams. She wanted to become a lawyer, someone who could defend the voiceless. Every night she studied, recited legal quotes aloud, as if she could speak her dreams into life. But dreams don't pay WAEC fees, right? Money does. So when Henry arrived in Suleja in a black Lexus and asked for Sandra's hands in marriage, her life changed overnight. He didn't beg, he paid. He gave her uncle enough money to build a new house and buy a car. He sent her cousins to better schools. Then he looked Sandra in the eyes and promised, "I will help you become everything you want to be." Sandra resisted. She didn't want to marry, not yet, but her uncle pressured her. "You will never get an opportunity like this again," he said. "He is rich, he is generous, he is powerful. Don't be stupid." And so with a heavy heart, Sandra agreed. The wedding guests in the village had ever seen. Top musicians came to perform live. People danced until their legs gave out. Sandra wore a beautiful silver gown that sparkled like the sky at night. But if anyone had looked closely, they would have seen it. The fear in her eyes. When Henry drove her away after the ceremony, she turned to wave goodbye. No one knew it would be the last time they would ever see her alive. Henry's mansion stunned her at first, a walk-in closet bigger than her entire home back in Suleja. She was treated like royalty, servants bowed when she passed, her bed felt like sleeping inside a cloud, and Henry was perfect. He enrolled her in university, faculty of law as promised. He bought her a laptop, textbooks, paid for everything. Every weekend she came home from school and spent her nights wrapped in his arms, thanking God for such a man. For the first time in her life, she felt safe until she got pregnant. That was when everything changed. Henry's face darkened the day she told him the news. He smiled, but it was the wrong kind of smile. That night, Sandra couldn't sleep. A strange coldness filled the room, and in the quiet, she thought she heard something, a knock from the inside. She brushed it off as a dream. But the next day, when she opened one of the closets in the guest room, she found an old picture tucked in the corner of the drawer. It was worn, folded and stained, but she recognized the face. It was a young woman. Her eyes were wide, her smile gentle, and at the back of the photo, it faded ink. Someone had written, "Jessica, 6 months." Sandra's heart dropped. She took the photo to the housekeeper. The woman looked once and walked away, shaking her head. That night, Sandra called her roommates at school and whispered, "If anything happens to me, search for a girl named Jessica." It was the last phone call she ever made. The next morning, she was gone, found lying perfectly still on her bed, her unborn child gone too. Henry cried. Of course he cried. He always did. Sandra's uncle accepted the news with bitter weeping, but when Henry asked to bury her behind his mansion, no one stopped him. They said she was his wife. He had the right, and so she was buried. Time passed, and as always, the world moved on. A year after, Henry struck again, this time in Kano State. He returned with a stunning Muslim woman named Miriam, who wore her hijab with pride and confidence. She was different, strong, curious, and unlike the others. Miriam had secrets of her own. Miriam was not like the others. Yes, she was beautiful. Everyone said so. Her eyes were sharp like broken glass, and her skin glowed in the sun. She was 21, raised in Kano State, and came from a quiet religious home. She was disciplined, calm, and curious. So curious, some would say. When Henry came to Kano, dressed in white kaftan and polished shoes, he spoke softly and humbly. He said he wanted a wife to complete his life. He said he wanted Mariam. Her family was surprised. She was not loud or flashy. She had no interest in fashion or fame. She read books, kept a diary, and believed that silence was more powerful than noise. But Henry insisted. He said, Zainab reminded me of peace. And just like before, he showered her family with wealth, bought her father a plot of land, and gifted her mother gold jewelry. He sponsored her younger siblings' education and even helped renovate the family's mosque. Wow. It was too much, too fast, but her family couldn't resist. Mariam was sent off like a princess. Her nikah ceremony was small but elegant. Henry flew in chefs and decorators. The villagers whispered in shock, and just like that, Mariam left her old life behind and followed her new husband to the mansion in Abuja. The house welcomed her with silence. It was cold and spotless. The staff avoided eye contact. Everyone did what they were told and nothing more. But Mariam noticed things, like how no one ever entered the west wing, or how the doors in that part of the house were always locked, or how Henry avoided that hallway right like a curse. Also noticed the garden, beautiful, yes, but in one corner, the flowers never grew. No matter how green the rest of the yard was, that patch of soil remained dead. Old land, the gardener said. When she asked, nothing grows there anymore. Mariam didn't believe him. Henry was loving, gentle, but he never let her walk alone. Mariam didn't believe him. Henry was loving, gentle, but he never let her walk alone after dark. He always said, the house is big, you might get lost. But Mariam had grown up reading detective novels, and she didn't scare easily. 3 weeks into the marriage, Mariam found the notebook. It was hidden deep in the bottom drawer of her dressing table, slim, in leather and old. She opened it slowly. The first page read, if you are reading this, I'm probably dead. Mariam's fingers froze. The handwriting was neat and small. The pages told the story of a girl named Sandra, who had come from Suleja, from dreams of becoming a lawyer. It described her life in the mansion, the pregnancy and the fear that followed, and then this line, I hear them sometimes knocking, crying. One night I saw her reflection in my mirror, but no one was behind me. Miriam's heart began to race. She closed the notebook and slid it under her pillow. Her body trembled, but her face stayed calm. That night, Henry noticed something different in her eyes. You are quiet, he said. I'm just tired. Miriam replied with a smile, but her mind was moving fast. Wow. Over the next days, she watched closely. She noticed Henry always went into the West Wing on Sundays, late at night. He heard the special key ring. She also noticed that one of the housekeepers, an old woman named Mama Adeswa, kept glancing towards that side of the house whenever strange noises echoed through the walls. So Mariam waited, and on a Saturday night, while Henry was out of town for a business trip, she made her move. She crept out of bed at 2 a.m. She tiptoed down the hallway with a small flashlight and the stolen key ring she had quietly taken from Henry's drawer earlier that week. Her hands shook as she tried the keys one by one until finally the seventh key clicked. The door to the west wing creaked open. Dust rushed out like it had been waiting. Mariam stepped inside. The air was heavy and the silence was louder than anything she had ever heard. The hallway ahead was narrow, with black and white photos lining the walls. She moved closer. Each photo had a name, Jessica, Sandra, Bosse. Zainab turned to run, but she wasn't alone anymore. Mariam froze at the doorway. She could feel the presence of something living, but not fully gone. The room at the end of the west wing was dim. The walls were covered in bloody palm prints. The mirror across the room began to fog. Mariam stepped back. Her heart beat so fast like a Usain Bolt, but her eyes were locked on the reflection. Slowly, shadows began to reflect in the glass. 2 women, each with a swollen belly and sorrowful eyes. Mariam whispered, Jessica, Sandra. In shock, the lights in the hallway behind her began to flick. Then suddenly, a low groan echoed through the mansion. The floor creaked, the walls paused. A soft knock started from inside the walls. Mariam turned to run, only to find Henry standing in the doorway. He was back early, and his face was not the one she had married. Now you know, he said. But you were smarter than the others. I will applaud you for that. What did you do to them? Mariam asked with a trembled voice. Henry didn't blink. They weren't supposed to get pregnant. That wasn't part of the balance. That door, he nodded, towards the room, is not just a room, it's a gate. Their unborn children were taken in return. I was promised power, I was promised wealth, life without limits. Mariam's stomach twisted. You sacrificed them? She whispered. Your wives? Your children? Henry stepped closer, and you were going to be next. But what Henry didn't know was that Mariam had prepared for this. The night before, she had sent a copy of Sandra's notebook to a friend from school, a law student now working with a human rights agent. She has also planted a small camera under her hijab that recorded every moment since she entered the West Wing. She pressed a small button on her bracelet. A sharp sound rang out. Suddenly, shouts echoed through the mansion. Doors slammed. Armed officers burst the hallway, shouting. Henry tried to run but was tackled to the floor. Mariam collapsed to her knees. 3 months later, the story of Henry Maduka, the billionaire serial predator of Abuja, broke the internet. Journalists called him the mansion monster. Jessica's parents were flown in the city to finally get justice. Sandra's uncle, filled with shame, gave a public apology. The graves behind the mansion were reopened and properly honored. Mariam became a voice for justice. She didn't return to Kano. Instead, she stayed in Abuja and opened a foundation for abused women and young girls from rural areas, naming it Fearless Voices Foundation. As for the mansion, it was torn down brick by brick, and where it once stood, nothing ever grew again. Thank you for watching. Moral lessons of this story: greed can blind good judgment. When something feels wrong, listen to your instincts. Not all that glitters is gold. Speaking up can save lives. True strength is not in power or money, but in courage and compassion. If you enjoyed the story, comment below with your thoughts. What part shocked you the most? Share this with a friend who loves suspense and mystery stories. Like if you think Mariam is a true heroine. Subscribe for more chilling, deep and unforgettable stories. Bye besties!